out to True Story. Our theme tonight is baby steps. And I'm just wicked excited. I really, I thought I heard something. No? Yeah, welcome to True Story, everybody. I'm going to start again. So our theme tonight is baby steps. We have amazing stories for you tonight. For those of you who may be watching our live stream now or in the future, thank you. This program runs on donations. We are a nonprofit theater. If you can, please go to our website, estlosAngeles.org, and contribute in support of us. We would really, really appreciate it. It is on your donations that we have been able to keep True Story alive for now 10 years. I know. It's going to be 10 years in May. I have been honored and blessed to have amazing writers trust me with their personal truths and come and share them with the wider audience and share your stories, because once you tell them, they don't just belong to you anymore. Everyone who's watched your true story carries your story forward. And that to me is just like awesome. And I will keep doing it for as long as I can. So we're taking April off because we have Winterfest, which is our signature festival of play readings. It will be from March 15th to April 6th. We have there's 30 plays total. There's 6 one-acts and there are 24 full-lengths. Every weekend there will be amazing writers, plays, actors. It really is a festival, so please come back. Our True Story after that will be the first weekend of May 4th. And the theme will be May the Force be with you. It is, in fact, Star Wars Day and our 10th anniversary. So we're going to have a party. So bring your lightsabers. Awesome. That's all I'm going to say for tonight. We're going to start with the amazing Gordon Henderson.
It's maybe not immediately evident from looking at me, but I was once a fortune teller. It started in New York in the dead of winter. I had just started working full time and I got depressed. I was kind of new to adulting and sometimes had trouble doing activities that weren't done entirely for my own amusement. A few weeks of full-time work and I grew listless and lost purpose. One afternoon, I was out walking in the rain and found a chain of linoleum countertop samples at the base of a tree. I took them home and started painting on them, mostly with office supplies, black markers, and liquid paper. I took the operation to work, where I painted portraits of my colleagues and sold them for $1. There must have been 100, maybe more samples on the chain. Abira said, "Don't sell them for $1. They must be worth 2 or 3 times that." She made a row of nails on the exposed brick wall in our apartment. I hung the portraits on the nails. Friends came over, and when they saw that the paintings, they got very excited and said, "Oh, you're making your own tarot cards." I was, after several different people said this, maybe I was. I didn't know much about the tarot or fortune-telling cards, but Abira's foster mother, Joan, a teacher and artist who had a taste for the arcane, as well as a sense of humor, gave me a book called How to Make Your Own Tarot Cards. It was a book for children and young adults. Perfect for my purposes because it made everything simple and obvious. Our friend Kat is kind of mystical or witchy-poo. She is a student of the tarot and knows things. She gave me a book she'd bought at a library sale, which is very old, with engraved illustrations and comprehensive descriptions of the tarot cards, their suits, and meanings. I too became a student of the tarot. I was very serious about it, but I approached it in the same way I approached rewriting the Bible when I was in high school, which is to say that I respected the tarot, but I was willing to take liberties to make it make sense for me. In other words, the project had just a taste of wise guy shenanigans to it. There are 5 elements in the Rider-Waite tarot deck. Each one is represented by a suit. Pentacles for earth, swords for air, wands for fire, and cups for water. The 5th suit is the major arcana for spirit. The first tarot deck I made was based on the major arcana. To print them, I enrolled in an offset printing class at a place called Center for Book Arts. They are still thriving. The teacher was a printing genius named Clifton Metter. Clifton had the tools and the technical know-how to make my dream real. Coincidentally, the backs of the tarot cards feature tools, saws, pliers, files, and an awl. My theme is the hardware tarot. The cards are meant to be tools of emotional insight and understanding. The cards all fit on one printed sheet with the tools on the back in black and the faces on the front in color. For each color, the machine had to be cleaned, and then Clifton would ink another. Each sheet went through the machine 5 times. It was a machine, so no 2 are identical. We printed about 300, but most of them but not all of them were usable. Once they were printed, I took the sheets home, cut, and assembled them. Ira Ollie's grandfather, Louis Freeman, owned a novelty company, Freeman Novelties, in Pittsburgh. After a visit to Pittsburgh, Abdullah returned with a box containing the packaging for a product called Baby Joy Ventilated Baby Panties. We agreed that this packaging would be the perfect packaging for my fortune-telling cards. With Beer's help, I created a comprehensive user manual with information on how to read and interpret the cards. The bottom features the boast Pop Psychology trading cards. Collect every symptom. I called my tarot deck the Nib Geebles Triple Action Fortune-Telling Cards. I used that name because I didn't want to have to argue about the finer points of what I was doing with anyone. But what were the 3 actions boasted in the title? 1, to entertain. 2, to offer a giddily altered perspective. And 3, to inspire personal insight. On the street, I found a flyer for a local psychic. Rather than going to the trouble of writing my own flyer, I repurposed hers with a few small but meaningful changes, and I made it gender fluid. I think it's the next one. Try the next one. There it is. There it is. Okay, so I don't know if you can read it. It has a lot of boasts on it. If this Cleveland-born spiritualist who brings to you the solutions to the mysteries of the dog man seeks to help many thousands of people who have been crossed, have spills, can't hold urine, want pain, want their own pleasure, want to stop nature problems, and want to get into a strange situation. If you are seeking a surefire man to do for you the things that are needed, or wish to gain acceptance or crime, love, and frivolity in the home, you need to see this seer of light today. She tells you all before you utter a word. He can bring the spirit of release and control your every affair and dealing. Are you suffering from lust for a disease that you cannot cure? There is a doctor of all doctors. This doctor is Nib. And so on and so forth. I put the cards, repurposed flyer, and the instructions into the baby panties package, and the fortune-telling cards were complete. Let's look briefly at the cards. Glamour. Money, pleasure, indulgence, betrayal. Offspring. Permanent change, creativity, and growth. Pawnee. Beauty, pleasure, shyness, and emotional peaks. Toothed bird. History, travel, romance, and bad spills. And fetus drug lord. Domination, heat, obsession, and political awareness. This card is the most dreaded card in the deck, like the Tower or the Devil in tarot cards. A crucial moment in the execution of an idea is when your idea is tested in the public eye. As Nib Geebles, I had amassed a small but dedicated public from making annual calendars, a public that wouldn't mind if I showed up with fortune-telling cards. I also got the cards in a few different stores that sold self-published printed matter. One of them was called Printed Matter, and they were reviewed in Fact Sheet 5, a publication that was like the white pages for the lunatic fringe before the internet. Somehow I sold most of the cards quickly. Only one package came back, sent anonymously with a note that said, "These are too scary for me." I did lots of card readings to everyone who came over. I had a special hat, which was like a turban, with a tiny rubber hand pinned to it. I like to don the turban before doing a reading. My first moment of tarot card reckoning took place at the home of two prominent psychiatrists at their mansion overlooking the beach in Santa Barbara. Our friend was in a relationship that had a very large footprint. He was a loose shoes sort of person. He had dreams, but he also enjoyed his life. His partner, on the other hand, was going places, to the very top of the new age corporate ladder, and she wanted a partner who would go with her. They were both engaged in breaking him down to build him up again as a self-actualized, spiritually complete being with the confidence and the clothes needed to lead his own company. Even without the handmade divination cards, it was apparent that these two were not well matched. But they were attempting to force the issue. So when the boss said, "Gordon, can you read our cards?" My sphincter tightened. Obliged. And with the two poker-faced but vaguely judgy psychiatrists sitting there pompously looking on, I read the cards. I can't remember exactly what the cards said, but it wasn't pretty. They wanted, no needed, the cards to resolve their complicated relationship problems and show them the way. While I grew crimson in color and clammy in disposition, I tried in vain to talk them down, but I never lost sight of the fact that this spectacle was being observed by two of Southern California's most renowned psychiatrists. I was in over my head. I recall this going on for about an hour. The discussion continued even after we'd gotten up and put the cards away. I finally said, "Look, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm an artist, a wise guy. I am not equipped to fix anyone. I spent 5 years working on the tarot. I made a prototype deck of all 78 cards, which I took on the road. I became a fortune teller for hire, reading cards at art events and corporate parties. For a while, it was fun and funny, despite occasional awkward situations. It was a beautiful experience and lucrative, until one cool December evening when I was hired to be the fortune teller at a lavish holiday party thrown by a record company. The mood wasn't right, and more people than usual were walking away upset by the terrible news I'd given them through the cards. You know, I even had a sign that proclaimed in near perfect grammar that I was telling misfortunes. But that wasn't enough. People still got upset when the cards said that they were an aging baby, or worse, and demanded I tell them what they should do with their lives and relationships. Then, the handsome CEO of the company and his partner, who might have been a model, sat down to have their cards read. Clearly, they had been basking in the beautiful evening and were expecting me to divine that you're entering a particularly creative phase, and I see romance. That's not what the card said. Their final card was, of course, Fetus Drug Lord. The CEO seemed to take this in stride. He maintained his coolness. His partner did not. I still remember the rage with which she regarded me. It made my tongue dry, which made it harder to explain that the cards are meant to offer insight and not deliver judgment. Before the evening was over, I knew that I would be hanging up my turban as a fortune teller and going back to the life I'd loved as someone who makes calendars. That night I was one of the last to leave the party. I stood on the curb waiting for the valet to bring my car. There were two other people waiting, the CEO and his partner. They stood glaring at me, anger rising off them like steam in the December night. During their reading, they had asked, "What is a fetus drug lord?" A fetus drug lord is a half-formed person or idea that has the power and the means to do harm. Currently, we have one in the White House.
There we go. Moving along. Rafeal, would you like to tell us a story? It's Rafeal Clements, everybody.
Yes, I would. When I was a sophomore in high school, I became the object of attention from Miss Tracy Merriweather. I don't know what brought this on. Tracy and I had never had a conversation. We didn't have any classes together. We didn't belong to the same club. We did not share any common friends. The only contact Tracy and I had was the bus ride coming back and forth from school. It was on the school bus where Tracy made her affections known. The bus pulls to a stop. A group of kids climb up the stairs and make their way noisily down the aisle. Tracy is among the crowd. She sits down in the empty seat next to me. The bus continues its route for a few minutes. Tracy turns to me. She wants to talk. You looking good in that shirt. Cute. You cute. You know that? Thank you. Why don't you unbutton it some? I want to see your chest. That's all right. Tracy leans closer. Come on. Show me what you working with. She's unbuttoning my shirt. Hey, stop that. Tracy laughs. Her voice is husky and taunting. She's rubbing my exposed chest with her hand. She gives my cheeks a long squeeze and displays a nipple. She moves her mouth close to my ear. Her breath is warm and pungent, smells like corn chips. Come on, baby. Give me some. Suddenly, there's cackling. Howls of laughter erupting directly behind me. It's Tracy's crew. Her older brother Eric, Edward Madison, and Tony Kinsey. The three are causing commotion all their own. They are loving what Tracy's doing and egging her on with whoops and howls, and stomping and shaking the backrest of my seat. Any thought I had of physically stopping Tracy evaporated the moment the crew joined in. In high school, and because Tracy's friends could be generously described as thugs, no one came to my aid. Tracy continues to rub me all over. The bus finally arrives at school. The four sauntered off, enjoying the shared moment of camaraderie, having fun at the expense of the new kid. And as the bus empties, I remain in my seat, traumatized. This treatment became a regular occurrence for a year. It didn't happen every day. Sometimes weeks would pass and Tracy wouldn't say a word to me. But then, without warning, it would start again. following the same pattern as before, with Tracy's hands all over me as her boys cheer her on. I didn't have the words back then to describe what was happening to me as sexual harassment. The thought never even crossed my mind. Maybe if I had been attracted to Tracy, it would have been different. Perhaps I would have even joined in willingly in a mutual makeout session. But the thought of having someone forcing themselves upon you, even if that person is beautiful, while a group of people acting like a mob are pressuring you to give in, I thought that kind of thing only happened to girls or women. And if that's the case, if I'm being sexually harassed by a girl, well, then what does that say about me as a boy? Why didn't I stop her? Never mind the fact that I was afraid to get my ass kicked by these three large goons. Why didn't I just stand up to them all as a man? That was a thought going through my mind at 15 years old. While all this was going on, I was also a member of the school wrestling team. And during the year, I was getting in shape and becoming better as a wrestler. I was named captain going into my senior year. And I could no longer stomach the thought of being a varsity wrestler while at the same time being physically harassed by Tracy Merriweather. I determined I would not go into my senior year being afraid. One day, warm spring afternoon, I was on the school bus heading home. Tracy sits in the empty seat next to me. She rubs the inside of my thigh with her hands. Hey, baby, give me some. I grab Tracy's wrists and lift her hands away from my leg. Stop, Tracy. She chuckles and purrs something I don't remember. I repeat, stop. The smile instantly fades from Tracy's face. And as she attempts to pull her hands free, I tighten my grip on her wrists and keep her at arm's length. Tracy is now struggling to break free, and she begins screaming, loosening a torrent of curse words. And at that point, I feel two large, meaty hands grab my shoulders and lift me up and backwards, over the backrest so that my shoulders are resting, looking up. Staring down over me is the upside-down face of Eric, Tracy's brother. He growls, "Let my sister go." Edward and Tony are yelling and laughing. Tracy is cursing at the top of her lungs, and at that point, time slows down. And I was filled with rage. A murderous rage that was so consuming, all caution and fear was gone. The bus suddenly stops. It was my stop. It was the crew's stop too. I rush out the aisle, down to the sidewalk, slam my book bags down to the ground, and I face off on the floor. Come on, you motherfuckers. I'll fight y'all. Come on. Come on. The crew choose not to engage. Eric, he steps forward toward me and he says, "I'm not going to fight you because you a brother, but I'm going to let you know that you the biggest Uncle Tom there is, and you, the motherfucker, fuck you." And with that, the crew turn and walk away. I pick up my bag and I walk home. When I reach my house, my mom sees that something's wrong. "Ralph, what's wrong with you, baby?" "Nothing, Mom. I'm not feeling good. I think I'll just head on back to my room." I skip dinner and I go to bed. The following Monday, on the bus, Tracy and the crew don't say a word to me. I don't have any problems with any of them for the rest of my time in high school. A year later, it's December 1980, and I'm a freshman in college back in my hometown on Christmas break. I'm at a Kroger's shopping, and coming down the aisle, I see Tracy. She's pushing a baby stroller with one hand and holding a basket with the other. The baby is howling. Tracy looks tired. I see her before she sees me. Our eyes meet. I walk toward her. Hey, Tracy. Hey. She seems unhappy. We pass each other without saying another word. I make my way to the cashier, pay for my items. At that moment, I remember feeling pretty good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rafeal. Terry.
Hey.
It's Terry Fallon, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Sometimes I just have to take a little pause between these stories. They're so great. Just kind of sit with them. And so, hey, everyone. I really am so happy to be here. I just love this theater, my fellow writers, and all of you who show up. I love being part of this special community of artistic, kind, supportive, and if I say so myself, brilliant people. It really does, it feeds my soul. So when Lizzie said the theme for tonight's story is baby steps, I thought, oh, I have a story for that one. It's about the day in January 2018 when I get a text from my younger sister. Quote, I'm at emergency. I have a brain tumor. Please call. Right there, the world stopped and was forever changed. And I would love to tell you that story. How she had brain surgery, but it was botched, and she had a massive stroke while she was in recovery. How I stayed by her for 2 years, and step by baby step, she fought her way back. And how privileged and humbled I felt witnessing her grace, her determination, and her fucking strength and heart and character. I would really like to tell you that story. But like most Americans, I am distracted by the elephant in the room, Trump, and all that goes with it. We are literally standing in history, and I just can't tell a normal story like we are in normal times because we are not. Election night hit me hard. I cried and felt so deflated, like many people. And I just shut down. I went radio silent and I withdrew. And that's not a bad thing. That is a survival thing. I recognized it and I honored it. And I'm actually glad for it because it felt calm. A few things in my life have been calm. In fact, most of my life has been a fight. Raised in a dysfunctional and often violent home, I had to fight. As a woman in the military, I had to fight. Trying to break out of poverty was a fight. I fought as a union rep for 200 teachers. I fought for my sister's health care. My life has been a never-ending series of fights. And at this point in my life, I want peace. I want travels. I want wonders to behold. I want rest. That dreaded election put me, like most of the nation, on edge. And I could see the storm clouds coming, and I told my husband, if Trump wins, I want to go to Europe. Now, that's not an empty moment of drama for me. My husband and I met while on a peacekeeping mission in Bosnia. We have both witnessed the effects of civil war, where the law does not hold and neighbors treat neighbors to the roaming vigilantes who, worst case, take the man away never to be seen again, threaten the family. Or they told them they had 5 minutes to leave. The rebellious families packed a few belongings and before leaving, put a lit candle, in the attic and turned on the gas before they left. That scenario played out all across the Balkans and left 1.3 million people displaced. So when Trump, round one, had goons in pure black uniforms and no identifying decals or name tags, etc., show up in white vans at the protest in Portland and 3 people in those vans and drive away, well, let's just say, I think it's going to happen again. It is happening again. And my experience with Civil War told me the ones who did it were the ones who got up first. But there are many reasons why people don't leave. And my anger, at least for now, is the universal anger of love. My love for my husband, who doesn't want to leave, my family, who I love, my state, who I love, and my country, who I love. But I know that staying here without a plan is foolish. Because no one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us. So I needed to review what I knew about civil warfare. And I'm not trying to scare anyone here, quite the opposite. Believe me, planning is a good thing. So I started a plan. I'm going to share it with you. So I wrote it out. Get strong. Physically, mentally, spiritually, and whatever that means for you, whatever it means for me, do it. Get strong first. And then we added, be disciplined. Stay here, get strong. Stay focused on your getting strong. Disengage with social media and the news. And believe me, if something big happens, you'll know it. When we are captured audience during the headlights, paralyzed or riding a mental roller coaster, constantly off balance, you are exactly where they want you. You are ineffective. You are stressed. You can't worry about everything happening everywhere. Worry is an exercise in mental exhaustion. Save your energy for the real fight. Stay in the reality of now. Stay in your AO. Area of operation. My personal AO, my home AO, my neighborhood AO, and my town AO. About as big as it gets. Home AO prep kits. You remember those? The earthquake kit, the water, the medical kit, the COVID stash, the fire evacuation list. Review it, replenish it. Important documents. Take photos of your important documents and put them on the cloud. Many displaced people in Bosnia couldn't prove that the house had belonged to them because they didn't have the documents. Have some cash. Have a stash of a month's worth or more of prescription pills and have a portable phone charger. Go to the range and practice. When AOs are secured, find your people, your allies. What neighbors, friends, family can you count on? Having a neighborhood text group is a good start. Brainstorm how you can work together. When I deployed to the LA riots, the Holotron electronics store in the corner of Santa Monica and Vermont had guys on the roof in the store and in front positioned with shotguns. As Payless Shoe Store burned nearby, no one approached the Hollytron. Pacific Palisades had barricades on roads entering town. If you wanted in, you had to prove you lived there. Working together works. Next, review the enemy plan, Project 2025. Look for the parts that apply to you and anticipate the moves. War game different scenarios. If this happens, we do this. If that happens, we could do that. At least helps me feel like I'm getting ahead of it. The purpose of this self-talk and action plan is to move myself out of inertia. Inertia puts you at a disadvantage. It makes you hesitate or worse, cower. Do not cower if you can help it. Try not to cower. It only emboldens the bullies. It's better to take steps, even baby steps. Is this what I'll be doing at this juncture of my life? Nope, not at all. I would like to be walking through some old town, sitting outdoors in a cafe with my journal, people watching. That's what I want to be doing. But as we all know, when the occasion rises up, we have to rise to the occasion. We got through Trump 1. We got through COVID. We learned to adapt. We are resilient. And remember, during the LA riots, the chief of police, Daryl Gates, took all of the police off the streets, leaving the people to fend for themselves. So we have to show up for ourselves. Now I know what you're wondering. Whatever happened to her sister? While recovering from her first brain surgery and stroke, she had another brain surgery because the first one left gauze in her brain. She fought for custody of her son, and she got a divorce. And then she bought her first house. And then she packed the boys and the dogs and she moved to their new home. She is doing amazingly well. And I promise when things calm down, we're all safe, I will tell you her whole story at another true story. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Terre. I feel better prepared. I feel better prepared. Yeah, absolutely. And Alex, you haven't been here a long time. Alex is one of our longtime writers. And we're going to come back to our stage for the theme baby steps because of that person in the front row.
Hi, my love. Hi, my love. Yes, Alex. Dad. Dad. You're supposed to call me Dad. Yes. Okay. All right. I wish this was a happy story. Yes, my dear. You want to come here? Come over here. Okay. Come here. All right. Hold my hand. And Daddy's going to read, okay? All right. Yes. I once knew a kid named Mitch the Mitch, a chubby white boy who yearned to be up in the mix. His family was working class, far from rich, just a short generation out being hillbilly hicks. Mitch's dad passed away when he was 6 after he hitched a bad ride inside a Motel 60 OD'd on a cocktail of snow and ice. If you don't know the difference, you're probably not from the life. This happened before Mitch was old enough to know he grew up home where his father's love would go. He filled that crevice with ambitions like Icarus, cocaine-filled illusions like Pacino gangster flicks. Mitch's mom, Lucy, lied and told Mitch his dad died as a hero. He went out getting shot, but omitted the needle. All wasn't lost, though, because Mitch has Pop Pop, a retired serviceman who fought bravely in Nam, was once reprimanded for killing a man in Saigon inside the wouldn't serve because he was far too gone.
Alcohol addiction kept him searching for places to drink away from the emergence of violent urges. In fact, this made him inherently racist. Tried instilling in Mitch this as simply part of the basics. But Mitch never took too well to the lesson, so Pop considered that insubordination and would beat Mitch whenever he'd get too weak, called him a soft dog, questioned if he was really his blood because his hair wasn't blonde. Even though he was wrong, no one challenged Pop. They simply went along, and that was that. He said the beatings were for Mitch's own benefit. Without them, he'd grow up to be a maggot and too delicate. Besides, this is how real men were forged and made. Mitch learned to remain silent, take the beatings with no complaint. These memories of his upbringing will inform all of his aims. In retrospect, Mitch wasn't cut out for these harsh games. Hate would poison his heart through his veins, but before all that happened, there was still some hope and possibility for recovery. When Mitch was still elementary, he was assigned sixth grade with Mr. Ramirez, a Marine Corps vet of Desert Storm whose bloodshed turned him to Jesus. He had a passion for teaching children because his wife couldn't have kids of their own, so he mentored troubled youth like Mitch as a way to atone for the sins he committed while he was deployed from home. When Mitch never treated Mitch like an ignorant child, he saw the light with his eyes. Taught him to read and write, and for a brief moment of time, Mitch's life seemed all right. That whole year, Mr. Ramirez was more than a teacher. He showed Mitch love and compassion and helped him foresee a bright future. The other kids made fun of Mitch when they all culminated. They didn't understand why he cried while they all celebrated. Ramirez made Mitch promise he would return to visit, but Mitch didn't because he got caught up in his family's business. Shortly after, Mitch's grandma got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She was the only one who protected him from her abusive husband's ire until she simply couldn't remember. One gloomy afternoon, Grandma wandered off and disappeared for 2 days, like her father during midday in a haze of confusion, sitting near a cliff. She was hospitalized and sent to a SNF. First, Lucy worked 2 serving jobs, juggling multiple shifts. Lucy got her own boy, but had her own deal. See, getting pregnant with Mitch compromised her scholarship deal. Serving was supposed to be temporary. Her education became secondary until her dreams slowly became stale and sedentary. Whenever she was home, she had to care for her father. Too tired and exhausted, she passed out during dinner. It was in those moments that Mitch determined that his mom deserved better. He would go up to take care of her. His objective would be to chase the almighty dog. He would follow the 10 commandments right down to the letter until he was the most revered street dog or die trying to get there. Big hopes and dreams that came to this queen all before he was old enough to nicotine. His expects and dreams slipped between the cracks. The first time he was attacked by bullies, he was too scared to strike back, so they stole his dad's watch and lunch money and took off as they laughed. By the time Mitch got to high school, he was permanently angry. Got into fights with other kids because they looked at him funny. His clothes were hand-me-downs, his shoes were old and dummy. He was far from academic. Undiagnosed dyslexics, teachers called him a dumb fool because he struggled to pay attention. Oftentimes in the evenings, he'd listen to his mom argue with her boyfriend, Brian. The soundtrack was laced with profanity and crying. None of that was happening a year prior when Pop suffered an aneurysm and it left him dying, causing Brian to move in after Pop's body released his soul. Mitch became the man of the house, but didn't get a script for the role. Years of expectations had begun taking its toll. When Mitch was 16, he came home from school one eve, excited to news with his mom to join the LTC. Join the service like Pop's always wanted, plus the GI Bill and helped their new life get started. He was startled to see Lucy's face bruised and bleeding while she wept. She was sitting on the floor of the kitchen, icing her left cheek. Lucy told Mitch she confronted Brian without proof that he was cheating, Rafeal and beat her before he proceeded with the beating. Mitch got Pop's service gun and shot Brian in both hands as he shielded his piece. Mitch got a year in youth authority, which only fueled his illness. After his release, Mitch ranked up amongst hooligan crowds, dropped out of the house, and got schooled around town, catching buses, causing ruckus, straight up menace to the public, open sporting ice, fake Rolex watches. See, nobody saw the deep pain beneath this young man's surface. Mitch was losing the battle to generational curses. Each disappointment appointed him made his inner hatred worse, and people only saw Mitch's residuals, ignoring his rituals of self-deprecation as a form of justification for all the painful things that fueled his motivation. When he turned 18, it was just Mitch and his mom. In a cramped studio apartment off of Venison Palm. From permanent disability from a kitchen accident, she became dependent on pain meds and smoke and spent most days laid up in bed. Mitch felt responsible, started getting desperate, linked up with some dudes who cooked ice in the basement. Their enterprise was airtight, flipping bags of soft white. Finally, guys that respected his struggle and play. His first test was to prove that his heart was hardened and iced, so a home invasion robbery would go down that night. Mitch and his two homies drove through different neighborhoods in a nicer part of the city. Crescent Heights, there's some shit that sounded ugly. Suddenly, the driver stopped in front of a house on the corner, and it didn't look like inside was the property owner. The younger homie handed Mitch a bird 45 and was told his main job was to keep him alive. The three of them entered the house from the side, to a metal gate that didn't make a sound to announce they arrived. As luck would have it, the entrance door from the back was open. They all made their way in without an alarm to expose them. The robbery was going smoothly without a hitch. Suddenly, Mitch saw something that made his heart glitch, his eyes twitch. The portrait of a young man posing in front of a flag. Before he could formulate a full thought in his mind, shrieked in loud pain after several guns began flying. His big homie made it out the door, but his little homie lay still on the floor. A dark, shadowy figure was yelling commands. Mitch's automatic reaction was to discharge the gun in his hand. As he took off and ran, he yelled, "Don't you, it's me!" Mitch collapsed to the ground with a thunderous mid-flee. His eyes and mouth were still open when the mirrors turned him around. He didn't hear Mitch's plea. There was just his own PTSD had drowned his reality out. Suddenly, time stood still, interrupted by the distant silent house. Mr. Ramirez hadn't seen Mitch in a couple of years. He just held his lifeless body, rocking it through the tears. When the cops arrived, the rule that justified homicides, no charges were filed. After a short while, Mr. Ramirez sold his house and moved to Riverside. And if you're wondering how I know this like a man on the inside, it's because I'm Mitch's big homie who made it out that house alive. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Well, before we move on to Jim Lunsford, I want to tell you all that it is Jim's first time reading with us. And I want to welcome you to the True Story community. Welcome, Jim Lunsford.
Thanks for the invitation. So in my final therapy session before leaving for graduate school, my therapist asked me what was frightening me most about the move from Los Angeles to New York. And about third on my list was that I'm not worthy. He stopped me cold and we talked briefly about where those feelings of unworthiness might be rooted, but the session was far too short to dig so deep. And I was on a plane to the East Coast just a few days later. It was a year and a half after that therapy session that I got the daddy call. I was back in California for spring break and driving from LA to Vegas in a dirty white Toyota Camry I had borrowed from my mom. My ex was living in Sin City at the time, and I was on my way to return our dog, Honey. She was a golden lab shepherd mix, and we had been sharing custody since our split. Honey was asleep in the back seat when my cell phone vibrated on the seat between my legs. I turned down the music, put in my earbuds, and pressed the talk button. Hello? Hey, it's Kara, said the voice on the other end of the phone. Actually, it was Kara who had found Honey as a stray 10 years earlier and suggested that I take her home. And not long after that, coincidentally, I introduced Kara to another woman friend of mine, Dawn, and eventually they ended up married. So in the matchmaking department, I've always considered us even. I continued the conversation with my standard reply. Hey, what's going on? Kara cut right to the chase. Dawn and I have been talking about having a baby, and both of us agree that you would make the perfect father. Kara eventually broke my shock-induced silence with, "So, what do you think about that?" She posited the question with her ever-present upbeat lilt of possibility. Before I could answer, she went on to explain that she and Dawn were interested in finding someone who wanted to be an active parent in the arrangement, not simply a sperm donor. They wanted to have a child, and they wanted that child to have a father, me. My mind was racing, and reflexively, I tried to dismiss the offer with the myriad reasons why I was not the right man for the job, specifically the hand job that would lead to a turkey baster, that would lead to a baby shower with a mass of befuddled friends and family, and the rest of my life as some kind of parental imposter trying to convince myself, our child, and the rest of the world that I had the slightest inkling about how to be a fucking dad. First, I tried pointing out the simple math of it all. I told her, although she was not yet well into my 40s, but she immediately countered that, biologically speaking, age was really only an issue on the egg side of the equation. So next, I reminded her that I was an unemployed, loan-accruing student with no income or foreseeable prospects. Kara discounted that issue with the fact that she and Dawn were gainfully employed and that my ability to contribute financially would certainly improve after my graduation. Damn, her unbridled optimism. It was time for the big guns. "You know, I am HIV positive," I said. "I know," she replied, again with a lilt. Of course she knew. And I knew that she knew, so like, what the frick? She went on to assure me that there was something to be done about this. "The virus isn't actually in the sperm," she said. "It's just in the semen. That can be washed out in a lab, making it safe for insemination." Shit. HIV positive, that was my best ammunition. That was my sure reality grenade against all that might be wonderfully possible in my life. But Kara could not be stopped. She went on to ask if my viral load, which is the measure of how much active virus is actually in a person's blood, was still undetectable. And I said that it was, and that it had been for most of the 20 plus years that I had been living with the disease. Kara continued to speak, and outside the hot, flat, barren terrain rolled up over the horizon, drifted past my windows, and disappeared into a fuzzy heat haze in the rearview mirror behind me. And as the conversation drew to a close, I was simply asked to consider the matter and reassured that there was no great rush to make a definitive decision. By the time I had pulled off the highway and into the tiny town of Baker, I was now sitting up in anticipation of a pee break and the chance to discover parts of the world heretofore unsniffed. We parked behind Arby's, not far from the base of the world's largest thermometer. As man-made tourist attractions go, it's hardly on par with Mount Rushmore, nonetheless jutting up from an almost barren desertscape. The large neon phallus does command a gay man's attention. And as I stared up at the ridiculous monolith, the tears began. Slowly at first, soon the floodgates burst. And it was a good cry, long overdue. And as I sat there, slouched and sweaty in the snotty aftermath, I knew that it was complicated. That release. Dawn and Kara's baby proposal had triggered the breach, yes, but the deluge that followed carried with it a mudslide of long-rotting emotional debris. The disgrace of growing up a closeted homosexual in the Catholic Church. The debilitating shame of my HIV diagnosis at the age of 22. Embarrassment for the 28 years it took me to earn a bachelor's degree. Disappointment in all the dreams I'd never achieved. Regret about my failed relationship, fear of an uncertain future, and the dread of dropping honey in Vegas and having to say Once again, goodbye. And in the backwash of it all was the same underlying truth that I had confessed to my therapist before heading off to grad school a year and a half earlier. The idea of fathering a child made me feel not worthy. I remember that a friend of mine and I had once discussed how it seemed that there were certain people who moved through life with a sense of privilege. They were deserving of everything, the entitled, we called them. And these entitled folks that we were speaking of were not rude, disrespectful, or self-centered. No, they were glowing, successful, self-loving individuals who seemed to feel inherently worthy of all of life's blessings. My friend and I hypothesized that this strong, healthy, positive sense of self-worth must have been something that these people were born with or had been taught or modeled to them at a very early age. Unfortunately, we both agreed that neither one of us was one of these people. In addition, my friend went on to claim that it was impossible for those of us without this built-in sense of entitlement to actually acquire it later in the game. And I remember arguing against his dire summation at the time. Back then, his theory seemed mostly esoteric and untestable, but now, after the daddy call, I was faced with a real-life challenge. I was about to be tested. Because in that moment, something occurred to me. Never once in all of that emotional tumult did it ever cross my mind that I did not want to be a father. In fact, as soon as the offer was made to me, I knew immediately in my heart that I wanted it more than I had ever wanted anything before in my entire life. Would the process be safe? Yes, Terre claimed that for the purposes of insemination, the disease in my body could be washed away so that there would be no risk of passing HIV onto our child. And that made sense because the human immunodeficiency virus is detectable, measurable, quantifiable. It lives and replicates itself in specific places in the body, most notably blood and semen. So the concept of obtaining sperm and then cleaning it of contagion before moving forward with insemination, that made sense. But what about the disease of my spirit? The infection that prevented me from feeling entitled. Where did that reside in me? When the question was posed by my therapist before he took off to grad school, I had no answer. And again, when faced with the prospect of becoming a father, I could still not pinpoint with any accuracy where my feeling of unworthiness was rooted. And if I was unable to isolate the origin of its growth or to contain it, how could I hope to eradicate it? Or in the very least, how could I reduce my HWV, my human worth deficiency virus, to a level low enough to make the possibility of infecting my child with that same sickness an acceptable risk? So there I was at a crossroads, two paths forward. At the beginning of a journey that might lead to the birth of my child. And one path was familiar, and I knew I could move forward in that direction at my traditional pace, striding along without retrospection down a road littered with psychological potholes, simply hoping for the best. Even though deep down inside, I believed in the end, I probably didn't deserve anything as miraculous as a baby. Or there was a second path, one that would be new to me, one that would require planning, a road where each small incremental step would need my careful consideration. And undoubtedly, I would need some guidance, some protective gear to help lessen the impact of those inevitable stumbles while struggling to find my way. But then in the end, in the presence of my child, I might finally feel worthy. Yes, there were two paths forward, one old and one new. And sitting there in that hot car, in the drying flow of a mucus volcano with honey panting over my shoulder under the huge thermometer in a small town on the edge of Death Valley, I chose the latter. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, can't hear it. Yeah. Great. Those are beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing them. Thank you. It's just awesome. Jim, Rafeal, Gordon, Terry, and Alex. I think that's my dog. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you. Hi. So, Chris, Isadora, Heather, and Billy. Thanks everybody for helping to make this happen. We will be back May 4th. And then June, we're planning a special weekend event of True Story that we will tell you about soon. But we have a lot of great stuff coming up. Thank you. There's cheese and crackers, there's cookies, and you can donate. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.